Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Greenwood podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kyle Quinn, and joining me today is my regular co-host, Chris Nugent. Welcome back, Chris.
How you going, Kyle? You all right?
Not too bad at all. Well, except for the result last night. After 70 minutes, I wouldn't have believed that we'd be sitting here talking about a draw. I really thought after we got the second goal that we'd go on to win the game, but we obviously totally capitulated, and I'm just totally furious, to be honest with you. I know Villa were always in the game because De Gea was being called into action in both halves, but I really thought when he got the second goal, we'd then see it out. But we took when Coutinho came on, obviously it seemed to lift the place. They got the goal back, and then we just kind of collapsed. And then I suppose that kind of brings us back to United being weak, having a weak mentality, not being able to even get in the setback of the Villa pulling the goal back and not being able to recover from that. I was very, very disappointed with Ralph Rangnick's substitutions or lack of. Um, First of all, when he brought on Sancho, the obvious substitution for me was Greenwood to come off because he was not performing well and he's been very selfish, very lazy. But Alanga was probably our best forward, and he took him off. Then he brought on Donny van der Beek and Lingard in the 88th minute. I mean, what what are they going to do in that space of time? Like, and you seen Donny van der Beek trying too hard. Basically, he was he was taking on three or four Villa players, trying to go past them all, like because he's so desperate to impress in the 6 minutes that he got. Um, and then the fact that Nemanja Matic played 90 minutes, a guy who we know does not have the legs to play in a high intensity football game, for 95 minutes or whatever it was. And it's obvious that he needed to be brought off because he was a walking red card as well. He was on a yellow. He was living dangerously, and he was so off the pace. So that was another mistake I believe that Ranić made. So, Chris, what was your thoughts on the result, the performance, and Ralph Ranić's substitutions?
Yeah, so like you said there, Kyle, how do we look actually just at the possession stats and some of the other stats from the game just earlier on before we come on here? And stark difference actually between the first half and the second half. In some ways, that kind of did kind of show kind of sum the game up in a sense for me. So I think in the first half, um, we actually had I think we actually had less possession, believe it or not, in the first half too, but it was kind of marginal. And the second half, it was the difference was vast. I mean, I think the story of the game really was the first half hour. We looked really in control, and we got the two goals. Albeit the first one slightly fortunate. Probably the keeper really should have saved that. Second goal was again a mistake defensively by Villa, but we capitalised on it really really well. And I thought we were in control. Yeah, so half an hour looked in control. Then they started to come into it slightly before half time. Half time came at probably a good time for us. But still felt like we're in control. And like you said, with 2-0, you expect really a 2-0 with any team unless it's a kind of a minnow playing a giant. You really do expect a 2-0 is virtually game over. Or you don't expect to drop two goals that level. Should be organised enough and compact enough to just to see that out, and maybe even get another goal. When they're kind of needing to score and they're going to be a bit more open. The second half we just went to pieces. Villa came back into it, like you said. Continue come on. That seemed to give the place a whole lift. And we just didn't have the strength mentally, again, as you pointed out, Kyle, to see the game out. So the performance was good in the first half, and while things were going well, it was all rosy, and then it just no steel, no characters, the usual story. People not strong enough to take the game out of scruff and say we're going to absolutely make sure we win this game. Not saying that you should be cynical, but being aggressive at the right time. Sometimes you do have to have the odd tactical foul to break down moves. Plenty of big teams do it. Just not doing enough to close the game out. And in terms of substitutions, yeah, I felt the exact same thing as you. Whenever Sancho was coming on, I thought Greenwood would have come off. And you could argue that Cavani deserved to come off more than Alanga. All right, Alanga is only a young lad. He was it's a big game for him. He's getting a start and all that, but he looked really bright. He's lots of pace. He's lots of ability, creating space for himself to get shots away. One or two times, yeah, maybe he could have scored it, but Greenwood all day long, you'd be saying Greenwood should score it when he doesn't. So yeah, I don't think should be a major criticism of a 19-year-old. And Cavani, for as good as he always is, he didn't have his best game yesterday. So yeah, Alanga would have been the one I would have taken off last of those three. So yeah, all in all, I think I pretty much agree with everything you said. I think the substitutions probably were the right ones, and Van de Beek and Lingard coming on, you're almost resenting when you're put on at that stage. Although Van de Beek again showing what he is, that he tried so hard, and Lingard probably did resent it. I wouldn't have blamed him. It's a token gesture, the 88 minutes. Hoping maybe somebody will get a goal, but yeah, it's you kind of the game's hard to over at that stage. I suppose so. Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Kyle. Disappointing day at the end of it all. Feels more like a defeat even than a draw. I think that sums it up, really.
Yeah, it probably feels like a win for Aston Villa fans. Yeah, that's always the way it is in these types of matches. So Greenwood, very, very disappointing again. Somebody said to me last night that I don't think he's passed the ball in the last 4 games, and that's the way it seemed last night as well. Constantly, every time he picked up the ball, kind of midway through the attacking, from like he'd pick up the ball 30 yards from goal, and he's always looking to find an opportunity to shoot. There was definitely one occasion, at least, where he could have picked out Cavani in the middle, and Cavani would have had a top in. On other occasions where he definitely should have looked up as well, and his shots weren't on target, or there were team efforts, and it's just he's extremely selfish. Not only that, for one of the Villa goals, he just allowed Lucas Digne, I think it was, just to go past him. Didn't even attempt to make a challenge. I know Fred will take the blame because he assisted the goal essentially, but if you watch Greenwood, he's doing absolutely nothing to track a run or make a challenge there, and it's just kind of symbolic of what he's been producing recently in terms of work rate. He just does absolutely nothing. I don't understand why the manager seems to have a liking for him. In terms of Rashford, Greenwood, and Sancho, the manager seems to favour Greenwood. I don't know why, because we know this manager likes players to do a lot of work off the ball. We don't get that from Greenwood, so I'm not quite sure why he favours him so much.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, and I mean, not to compare Ranić to Solskjaer, but a lot of these criticisms were things we had of Solskjaer too. He has his favourites. Why does he not take players off and things like that? And I think a lot of it does probably come down to the squad just not being good enough collectively, not saying individually, but collectively, to produce the kind of football that he wants. Ranić did say himself early on, that he would be pragmatic. So while he said he has a philosophy, so to speak, about how, and we all know his gegenpress and stuff, that's the way he likes to play. But, you got to have the players to do that. And I think he himself has recognised that he doesn't really have a full squad that can implement that system. And so I think he's trying to get the best out of what he's got. I mean, in terms of what he sees in Greenwood, I think he sees what we all see. We see a young player who, when he's on form, is absolutely lethal in front of goal, can score with both feet. You give him a chance, and a half decent chance, and 9 times out of 10 he will or he should bury it. So I can see why he wants to have him on there. There's players who'll try harder, like Sancho, but actually, in some ways, you could argue that Greenwood's output is naturally slightly better, and maybe that's why he keeps him on, because he thinks he's one of our better chances of something happening. Even though he doesn't do the work I want to do, at least he might get us a goal. But he's not doing that at the minute, like you said, Kyle. And goals are great, but actually, from a fan's point of view and from a team player's point of view, and Bruno Fernandez said exactly the words last night, doesn't really matter who scores. United have not traditionally been a team in my lifetime who always had the best striker in the league or the best striker in the world. That's never been United's style, not to talk about styles and cultures. I'm not worried if we have the best striker in the world or not. All I care about is that the team scores. I couldn't care less if it's a defender gets most of our goals or our goalkeeper or anyone. I really don't care as long as we score and we win games. And from that perspective, I'd rather Greenwood was passing when he needs to and let somebody else score. Don't care if it's him or not. But you're right, his mentality, for whatever reason, seems to always be to want to go to goal. I think that's a side of his game he really badly needs to work on. And that's even not even talking about what you just said there defensively, which is another side of his game that he needs to do more on. But at the minute, he's not even doing what I think Ranić's picking him to do, which is score goals and create assists, and he's not even doing that. So at the minute, he's not really given very much at all to the team. So I would agree with you that it's maybe time for him to be dropped, and maybe he needs a wake up call, and maybe that's the way to do it. Because if he keeps getting picked and he's not putting the effort, he's not having any output, it feeds complacency, and it doesn't breed hunger. So I think maybe he needs replaced for a while.
Yeah. Did you realise he hasn't scored goals since October? So if he's not scoring goals, he's not working hard off the ball. Then what is he bringing to the table?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly my point. He's not doing it. Rangnick must be picking him to score goals and get assists. If he's not doing that, and we know he's not going to do anything off the ball, he's basically contributing very little. So yeah, totally agree.
Another point I wanted to talk about is Bruno Fernandez. It was a typical Bruno Fernandez game. He was probably horrendous for the majority of the match, but he scored 2 goals. That is the most typical Bruno Fernandez performance, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Although that said, I watched Sky Sports afterwards, and when they drilled down some of his play, and actually he didn't play badly. He actually did have some pretty good moments. But yeah, I know what you mean. Overall, he didn't look like he was brilliant all the time. But yeah, that's what he does. He gets 2 goals. He pops up. He gets you 2 goals that technically should have won you the game. And so yeah, it's hard to criticize. And that's what I like about Fernandez. He's got that wee bit of magic. He's got that bit of intelligence just to do the right things. I actually thought his second goal was brilliant. It didn't look the most spectacular, but if you look at what happened, he gets the ball really quickly. It comes in his feet. He could have got a cut under his feet. A lot of people wouldn't have got that shot away, but he got it away brilliantly and put it away. I was quite impressed with the finish. Actually, he was really really good.
Yeah, I'm glad to see when a Villa player played it straight to Fred, that Fred had the composure, to look up and pick out Fernandez, because quite often we've seen Fred in that situation before, bungling the chance, like Chelsea match being an example of it. But yeah, it was a well taken finish. I love any goal it goes in off the underside of the bar, boom, boom, and into the
They
roof of
always,
the net.
they always look class. I know. They even look better than when it goes in cleanly. I know. I don't. What is it about it? Like you just can't not love that with a wee doink. Yeah, it's always great. Love it.
Yeah, and it was Fernandez was frustrating with the always looking for the Hollywood ball rather than just keep it simple, just keep possession. He plays a Hollywood diagonal ball, a crossway ball, gives it away, and a ball over the top and gives it away straight to the goalkeeper. He doesn't have to do that all the time. He's trying to do too much, really, at times. And then one frustrating aspect of him, I've talked about this many times on the podcast, is that he's always in the referee's face. And he's captain last night, so maybe he can get away with it more. But he needs to stop the yapping, complaining, and then the feigning injury as well. He hit that too.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
a bit
remember,
he's a bit petulant.
yeah, there was one occasion where he went down. He's probably trying to take the pressure off us because we're under the cosh, and he went down inside his own penalty area. And Ollie Watkins tried to lift him up off the ground, and he kind of swung an arm at Watkins. So yeah, he goes down too easily, and he back chats the referees for too much, and someday he's going to get a second yellow for doing that.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. I mean, I think he got criticised. Him and Ronaldo both got criticised for that a couple of weeks ago. No, I agree with you. It's a side of the game I don't really like to see. I don't like to see players feeling injury. I don't like to see him going down too easy. If I'm honest, when he got trampled on last night, as bad as that was, if it doesn't break the skin, in my opinion, it's not that painful really. You're standing on kind of muscle and fat. It's not really that painful thing. So I think he was making a bit of a meal of it. But all in all, with Fernandez, as petulant as he can kind of be. And I know there's always a bit of gamesmanship kind of in there. But at the end of it all, he does always just want to win, and not want to win in the sense of, if I thought a lot about this week with a lot of chat and what Ronaldo had said. I think there's a difference between wanting to win and really wanting to win. And I think if you ask anybody, do you want to win? They'll always say, oh, yeah, of course, never want to lose. But there's a difference between saying you want to win and actually being willing to put the effort in and having the mentality to actually win. And I think that Fernandez kind of has that in spades. So I suppose for me, Kyle, it doesn't annoy me too much when he does it kind of the yap and moaning. And the same goes for Ronaldo. I'll take that little bit of petulance all day long. If it's a player who has a top kind of winning mentality, and I think Fernandez does. So yeah, it's a bit annoying at times, but I think I can brush it over when it's him, if I'm honest.
I think he suffered this season as a result of Ronaldo being the main man. I think Fernandez likes being the main man, and probably wasn't a coincidence that Ronaldo wasn't playing last night. It was only his seventh league goal of the season. I think normally Fernandez would probably have 15 goals already this in a season. So just talking about Ronaldo, I want to get your thoughts on some of Ronaldo's comments in that interview during the week. The most interesting one was, of course, when he said, "At 18, some players spoke to me and they took that as having to improve because they knew more than me. This new generation don't accept criticism. If you don't want my help and advice, do your job, look at yourself, do your best to help the team." Now there seems to be a bit of a dig at some of the younger players in the squad, and for me it's probably mostly aimed at Mason Greenwood, and there's been lots of stories that Ronaldo has been complaining about Greenwood not passing the ball to him, and that's such an obvious complaint to have because Greenwood's always looking to shoot, and Ronaldo's quite like that as well. Ronaldo loves to shoot too, so them two don't really suit as a pairing, and you can see there being problems there. But what did you make of those comments in general?
No, I'm laughing at you saying that. I think it's a fair point. It does feel to me a bit like it was aimed at Greenwood. And ironically, yeah, Ronaldo loves to shoot as well. The difference is that Ronaldo does know when to pass and he does know when to shoot. And most of the time when he shoots, he does score. His record kind of dictates that. Mason Greenwood, unfortunately, isn't having that output. And in many ways, I think that's really the crux of what Ronaldo was saying. If just talking about what he was actually meaning is that or kind of maybe not what he was meaning, but certainly how other people interpret it is that you can say those things and you can be selfish whenever you have got the record to back it up. But some of these young lads at United at the minute seem to think that when they're at Man United, they've already made it because they're at Man United. And that means they can kind of do whatever they want because, I'm a Man United player, I'm a cut above the rest. And that's the thing is that none of them have earned the kind of they haven't earned the luxury of slacking off. None of them have earned the luxury that Ronaldo has of being a goal scorer who doesn't have to track back. People talk about Ronaldo not pressed. Ronaldo doesn't need to press. I don't care if Ronaldo never presses 1 minute of a game if he puts away every chance he gets, because that's what that guy has earned that over years of hard work and trophies and everything else. He has absolutely earned that. But these young lads haven't. And that's the problem, is they seem to, they don't seem to have the hunger sometimes. And sort of in general, what I made of it, Kyle, it's interesting because it's the sort of thing that I thought, you would like to normally keep behind closed doors. You don't like players coming out and saying that about their teammates. But if you look back at United, it reminds you certainly, number one, it reminds you of what Keane did in that interview that eventually got him sacked or got him, kind of kicked out of the club. But that aside, it feels to me in many ways like the same things we've been hearing really since Mourinho was there. Mourinho was basically saying the same thing, complaining about players' characters and all that, and pundits, Roy Keane and other pundits have been talking about it for a long time. But you don't really hear anybody saying it internally. And again, during the Ollie days, you and I always talked about, we hated that he always put a positive spin on everything, that he never came out and criticised. And I think it's down to personalities. Mourinho was happy to call them out. Ollie wasn't happy to call them out, try to keep behind closed doors. Ronaldo, with probably nothing to lose because of who he is, and he's coming to the end of his career anyway. He doesn't care. If United put him out tomorrow, he'd probably get another club anyway. So I think he was just saying what has been there for years, the problems that have been there, and people have thought and felt for years. Some people said it, some people didn't. So they weren't really surprised to me. I guess that's what I'm saying. His comments are just more of the same. It's just the fact that he kind of actually said it is the news story. But what he said is stuff that we've all known about for a long time. And that, for me, is what Ranić is there to change. With or without the new manager at the end of the season, is there to change that culture, get rid of those guys, or change their mentality, one or the other. But you can't have both. Can't have players that have their own mentality. And I just agreed really with what Ronaldo said. Can't really argue it.
Yeah, Ronaldo was basically saying what the fans have been thinking. So
Yeah.
anyone joining us or watching live or listening later on, leave us a wee comment down below, give us a thumbs up on the video, and please subscribe to the channel. Okay, I wanted to talk about the fullbacks now. And as harsh as this may sound, with two right backs and two left backs, and you can make a case that none of these players are good enough to be Manchester United fullbacks. I think Shaw probably has the highest ceiling. We've seen how he played at in 2021. For United in the second half of last season and at the Euros for England. Obviously the high point scoring in the Euros final against Italy. But since then he's been pretty poor. But we know he has a high ceiling. The rest of them, I don't think they have the ability to reach that level. Wan-Bissaka, Dalot, or Telles. And Dalot and Telles were really poor last night. Villa were finding it far too easy to get in behind them. They were getting beaten one-on-one too easily. When you look at some of the fullbacks that our rivals have, they might not be the greatest defenders in the world, but they make up for it because they're so good going forward. We don't really, Dalot and Telles, certainly Wan-Bissaka, Shaw at the minute certainly are not playing at that level. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Reece James, Cancelo at Manchester City, these are fantastic footballers. we need to have fullbacks at that level, and we're some way short of that, aren't we?
I think we need that level in every position, really, Kyle, and that therein kind of lies the problem. In terms of the fullbacks, yeah, I think you summed it up pretty fairly. I don't think any of the four are at the probably level that I want them to be, particularly with the modern game. Maybe back in the day, whenever a bit less was expected of players going forward, maybe you would have got away with a wee bit more. But I think fullbacks are expected almost to be like wingers in a sense these days. You talk about Alexander Arnold and Robertson and guys like that. That's what those guys have in their locker. Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know, my gut. I always feel more positive about the left backs, ironically, than the right backs for some reason. I don't know why. I like Tellez. There's something about him I like. Maybe it's just the character he has and the fight in him. Maybe I just like to see that. So, I kind of don't mind Tellez. And Shaw, you're right. Technically, is the best of the four. So I think, I think none of them are absolutely top level. Tellez is pretty good going forward, not so good defensively. Shaw kind of wee bit the same. And Dallo, again, Dallo not bad at times going forward, but I think he's even more suspect defensively. And we know that Wan-Bissaka is brilliant defensively, but there's nothing going forward. So yeah, you can make a case that none of them are good enough. You can make a case that between them, they've got some very good attributes. Obviously, they're playing for Man United. They're good footballers, but I think they are a wee bit off probably the level of some of the other guys in the league. So yeah, but I mean, in terms of the problems that we have, they're one of the many issues really. So I don't see them as being the immediate priority for transfers. But certainly over time, you probably would want to replace them, or at least try and get a wee bit more out of them anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been linked recently with the Brighton right back Lamptey. He's certainly a really good player going forward, and yeah, I don't see us signing fullbacks in January window, but it's probably something that whoever the manager is in June will something that he will look at. I think. I don't think Dallo, Tellez, or Shaw. I don't think any of them are good enough going forward to kind of compensate for their defensive deficiencies. I mean, if Trent Alexander-Arnold, I always use him as an example, he's not the greatest defensive right back in the world, but he's such a good footballer and has such an impact at the other end of the pitch. It almost doesn't even matter. So and that's kind of the player that we want to have. If he's not going to be really good defensively, he needs to be an absolute, almost a winger, almost at the other end of the pitch, and we lack that really, to be honest.
No, you're definitely right. No, we definitely do. But yeah, I mean, a part of it too, I think, is I think part of that's the forwards as well. A pass in some ways, only looks as good as the guy who's able to get on the end of it. If somebody bungles getting on the end of it or something, the pass may as well not have happened. So yeah, I do think that Alexander Arnold benefits from having players around him, who are going to make the most of his deliveries and stuff like that. Which I'm not sure at the minute we're getting quite that output. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And we have a player, like Ronaldo and Cavani, they're both great in the air and stuff. If you get, some people who are able to kind of put it on a sixpence, right on the top of their head, they're bound to get a few goals. And you're right, we don't really have that at the minute. So yeah, definitely a case. Like I say, I kind of don't think they're going to be the replacements in January. I don't think they are. If I was looking at the squad, there would be a place and going, oh, that's where we're really weak and we're really, we have to buy immediately. But I do think that, yeah, along with some other positions, they're definitely over time. I think we'll probably need to look for replacements. Yeah.
Yeah, another position that we're really weak in, as everyone knows and everybody talks about, is centre midfield. And last night, McTominay was suspended along with Luke Shaw. So, just like Solskjaer, Rangnick does not like to play Van der Beek at all, and certainly not in centre midfield. So that means with McTominay out, it's the old Fred and Matic dreaded combination. And last night they were pretty weak as well. So if you are going to sign someone in January, it really has to be a midfielder. I just don't understand. All the noises coming out is that we're not going to make that move. I mean, if a midfielder from the Bundesliga, Dennis Zakaria at Mönchengladbach, is available for just 6 million because his contract's up in June, you just have to go and do that deal because there's no risk involved in making a £6 million signing. If, in fact, if it doesn't work out, United could probably still make a profit on him. So it just doesn't make any sense not to go for it. And the Daily Mirror have been saying something similar again regarding this. The Manchester United hierarchy are reluctant to give Ralph Rangnick free rein in the transfer market. Rangnick is becoming increasingly annoyed at United's failure to back him in the market thus far. Is it a case of, well, we're not going to give him the job in the summer, so we're not going to back him in the January window? And even he's supposed to be there as a consultant anyway, beyond the season. So I don't really understand why the. I mean, he's going to have an input in the transfers one way or another. Surely he's contracted to do that. So I don't see why they wouldn't trust him when it comes to making a signing in January. And it's a position we really need to sign someone in urgently, because three things: we're not going to make top four with this midfield. Atletico will dump us out of the Champions League, and we're not going to win the FA Cup. So urgently, something needs to be done.
I just can't understand that. I haven't read that story. That's the first I've heard that, and I'll be honest, that's really, really actually irritated me. I just can't understand that. You know, like you said, Kyle, we 100% need a defensive centre midfielder. We've had this problem for a long time. That definitely needs sorted. And like you said, we spent money on a guy who cost 6 million to Man United. That's pocket change. And considering that we're going to offload players, Martial and maybe Pogba, whoever, over the next few months, I don't see why we couldn't afford to bring somebody in, when the transfer is going to be that cheap. And, they're probably not going to, coming from the Bundesliga, he's probably going to be earning more wage-wise too, so it's not going to be hard to get him. I just cannot understand at all why we would, anybody at Man United would say that they're not going to back Ralph Rangnick. I really hope that story isn't true, because I just cannot understand it. That is what we've been watching for years. It's the reason why we're an absolute shambles of a club at the minute, because we haven't been backing successive managers. I myself been saying this for years. I'm absolutely sick of it. I can't understand why you bring a guy in, like you said, whether he's to be interim manager really doesn't matter. He's supposed to be the man who's going to dictate who we buy and how the club football-wise gets structured over the next couple of years as a consultant. Well, why would you not let the guy start now and say who he wants to buy? I can't. I really honestly hope that story isn't true. I thought that was the point of bringing him in, was to move away from that mentality. If that mentality is going to continue, we are honestly absolutely doomed. We're never going to be a club that's ever going to compete, because we've said this so many times. People complain a lot about Solskjaer. I'm not trying to defend Solskjaer, talking about him being a coach, not good enough coach. Look, if all we're buying, if all we want is coaches, fine. Let's go out and get coaches, because it seems to me like that's the point we've got to. Managers don't longer make any decisions anymore. We're just looking purely coaches who are just going to coach whatever players they're given. And that's just what it's been like for years. And that's why we're such a mess. If that's going to continue, let's just go out and forget about people like Rangnick who are supposed to reform clubs. Just get rid of him in the summer. Just get a coach who's just going to somehow squeeze every ounce out of whatever he's given, because it seems like managers, if that's true, are never going to be, being able to build a squad. Like, what's the point? That's just silly. I really, really hope that isn't true. It's just depressing if it is, I have to say.
Yeah, and it's to the detriment of the club and the team, because the midfield is shambolic. It's I would say the quality of midfielders that we possess is probably about 13th in the league. It's in comparison to the forwards, for example, and the goalkeeper, and Varane. The midfield just does not, it's not on the same level as what the players we have in other positions, and we really need to do something about that. In fact, one midfielder isn't going to be enough. We need to sign two, I think, between now and the summer. So hopefully it's just a case of it's a bloated squad. The hierarchy want one or two people out before they bring somebody in, and I can understand that to an extent, because even from a fan point of view, it's annoying that we have so many players on the books. I mean, we have 29 first teamers, I think, and 7 out on loan. I mean, that's again, that is the board's problem, because they give these players high wages far too easily, and then when we want to sell them, we can't, because first of all, the buying club can't afford the transfer fee, and then they can't afford the wages. Prime example at the moment is Sevilla, who want Anthony Martial. Can't afford to pay 100% of his wages, and can only offer a wee 6 million loan fee. Can't afford to buy him, and he's a player that the manager desperate to get rid of. He wants to leave himself, and he's not able to leave on a permanent basis, and struggling even to move on loan, because the club that want him can't afford his wages. So this, assuming we are going to change our policy right now towards transfers and contracts, etc., it's going to take a long time to solve. It's not going to be solved overnight.
It's going to take an absolute lifetime to solve. I mean, at the end of the day, you only have to look at the fact that we talk about a new manager bounce. You know, we talk about every manager comes in, you're going to always you're going to get a lift out of the players because they're going to improve immediately, even if it's only for a short period of time, a honeymoon period, because of the mentality. That hasn't happened at United. And all that tells me is that the problems we have are so deep rooted in players and in the squad and in the culture and absolutely everything that we can't even improve when a new manager comes in. And that tells me that does not matter what manager's at the helm at Man United. You can get any manager. And if they're not able to actually do what they want to do, you're basically saying, I want you to do the job that you've done everywhere else, but I'm going to tie one of your hands behind your back. But I still want you to give me the same output you got everywhere else you went, where you were fully back. That is just never going to happen. It's unrealistic. It's never going to happen. Rania coming in a way has actually exposed the problems at the club, because for a long time, like we said, not that back Solskjaer or Mourinho or anybody, but fans have collectively been blaming a lot of some managers for a long time. And it's very clear now with Rania coming in, who's got good pedigree. He's not the problem. The club is an absolute mess, and it has to be sorted out. And what concerns me about that is that it's almost like saying they're not willing to let him sort it out. But you make a good point, Kyle. We've got a very bloated squad. Hopefully, maybe it's just a financial thing short term where we need to get rid of people first. And okay, I can accept that. I think I could accept that. That needs to happen. Okay, fair enough. But I would like to believe that whenever it becomes financially viable and we're able to get rid of these players, with the caveat again that you pointed out that the problems of not getting rid of players was created by people over the years at the club anyway, so it's their own fault, and I've very little sympathy for giving these players stupid wages that then can't offload. So not being able to get rid of players is their own fault. But that said, I'll accept that it's a reasonable kind of an excuse, so to speak. But once that's done, things have to change, and if they're not going to change, then no manager in the world is ever going to sort that club out, and we're going to be languishing in sixth and seventh place for I don't know how long to come, because things aren't getting easier, they're getting harder, and when we really need to do something about it.
Well, Richard Arnold's been briefing that things are going to be different under him, that he's going to learn from Edwards' mistakes and give more control and power to the football department. But we'll only find out if that's really going to happen over the course of the next couple of years. It could all just be PR spin, but we'll just have to wait to find out. Okay, I just want to ask you about Anthony Martial, who after the game, Ranić told us that he refused to travel to Birmingham. I'm assuming Ranić wanted to have a striker on the bench because we were a bit short of strikers last night with Rashford being out, and also Ronaldo being out, and there was no centre forward on the bench then. Martial didn't want to travel. He's so determined to move that he refused to play. I think he should be fined 2 weeks' wages for that, because while he's still at the club and the manager wants him in the squad, he should do that. He should be willing to participate, because that's like me or you. If we're under contract at a company that we work for and we refuse to work, we wouldn't be paid, and we'd be lucky to even keep our job. So he should be treated the same way. If he's refusing to work, he should be fined heavily for it.
No, I totally agree. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, people do often forget that footballers and sports stars, they are, while they're on a contract, they are an employee of an organization, and that means that there's certain things that you just have to do whether you like it or not. A lot of people are in jobs that don't enjoy all the time, but you still have to be professional and turn up and and do your job. And I think that's exactly, just sums it up what you said there, Kyle. From my personal perspective, from an emotional perspective, I really don't mind either way. If they don't find him, makes no difference to me. If they do find him, makes not much difference to me either. The fact is that Martial, for me right now, is showing that he doesn't really want to be at the club, whether that's to do with the club or to do with him or both. But the fact that, if this is some sort of protest about him not being, picked in squads or thinking that he's not going to get a chance, I mean, the type of player that's a pure winner sees that as a challenge and says, well, I'm going to prove that manager wrong. I'm going to do everything I can to show him why he's making a mistake not picking me. And the fact that Martial is choosing to react in a different way by huffing and puffing and, and kind of being unprofessional, kind of just shows the character of the guy, and or it shows that he's at the end of the road with the club. Either way, I think it's time for him to move on. So for me, I think it's just time for Martial to just to just leave and move on. So I say from a professional perspective, I think he should be fine. From a fan's perspective, I'm not really that bothered either way. I think we just need to find a transfer for him and just get him out. I think that's really what it's come to, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we need to move a lot of people on, and I think a few people are out of contract, and a few people are desperate to leave, like him. So I could see wholesale changes happening between now and the summer. I mean, Martial will go, Pogba will go, Lingard will go, Bailly, Henderson, Cavani, unfortunately, is going to go as well. So there's a lot of scope there to rebuild, and hopefully we will make at least 4 or 5 signings between now and the summer. And like I've said, they not only have to have the ability to play for Man United, they need to have it upstairs as well. They need to have the mentality of Ronaldo, Fernandez, Cavani, and Varane, people like that. Because if they don't, then we're just going to see the same old cycle that's been happening for the last 8.5 years. So yeah, I'm trying to remain positive about that, and hopefully we'll get it right. If Van der Beek could obviously leave as well, but I'm hoping that Eric Ten Hag gets the job, and then finally Donny Van der Beek will get his opportunity to prove his worth. Okay, I'll come on to the player ratings now. David De Gea, again, another stellar performance. Sometimes it's a case of what was your favourite save. It's a pretty down indictment on our defence when that's the case. But definitely for me, it's the one. I can't remember who had the shot. It might have been Danny Ings. I'm not sure, but it was going right into the bottom corner, and he just like a cat. His reactions were unbelievable. Just managed to get big right hand on it and tip it, out to the side. And there's a few other saves that were straight at him, really, but one where it was going to go underneath his legs, I think, and he was to block it with his knees, and then one from a header from a corner, which he had to push out. Okay, it was straight at him, but his reactions had to be quick, otherwise it would have went in anyway. But yeah, an absolute 8 out of 10 for me. What do you think?
Certainly, at least an 8 out of 10. Yep, maybe even a 9. Yep, he didn't do anything wrong. Nothing at all. Absolutely brilliant, as he has been for the last, all season, really. He's been one of the standard performance so far this season. He's just, every week, he's just everything gets thrown at him, throw the kitchen sink at him, and he seems to manage to keep it out most of the time. Obviously, not all the time. But did another great performance from De Gea. Couldn't fault him one bit. Yeah, like you say, Kyle, it's a damn indictment sometimes, because when he's making all these great saves, it means that our defence probably isn't doing their job, and he's coming under pressure. But in a way, I think he thrives on that in many ways. I think that's when he's at his best, is whenever he is under pressure. Maybe it makes him concentrate more. I don't know. He seems to be more suspect when the going's good. When the going's bad, he always seems to be the main man. So, another great performance from 100%.
Yeah, and depressingly so, he could end up with another Shamat Busby Player of the Year award, which is a damning indictment on the rest of the team.
Yes, unfortunately. So, great for him. Fair play to him. He deserves every bit of it. But, it's unfortunate that somebody else isn't stepping up and, taking it off him.
Yeah, because, Van der Sar or Peter Schmeichel never won that award. And that kind of tells its own story, really, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately so.
Okay, let's come on to the right back, Dallo. Yeah, beaten far too easily on one-on-one situations. They were getting in behind him. It's just defensively, he's really, really poor, and that's what we saw last night. So I would say a 3 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue that. Yeah, just you summed it up, Kyle. Not really much impact from him. He didn't do much really going forward, and defensively, beat too often down there as well. Just not a brilliant performance, really. I think he himself will probably admit that. So I think he'd be quite disappointed with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Lindelof didn't really impress me either, to be honest. There's no really glaring mistakes that he made in the previous game against Villa, but again, it wasn't brilliant. I hate this here defending that he does with his hands behind his back. And go out to the guy and try to make a block. Don't stand off him with your hands behind your back, hoping that you might get a deflection on it. I think both of us are in agreement that he's just not a United level defender. And I would give him a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I think the same. I think what disappoints me in many ways at the minute about United's, centre backs generally, and I kind of do include Varane in that, if I'm honest. You don't seem to see enough aggression from them. You don't, traditionally you kind of want to see a bit of a leader at centre back. Maybe I'm just old fashioned in that sense, but you like to see defenders being strong characters, as well as strong in their positions. And Lindelof, in many ways, probably Maguire technically is the strongest personality in that defense, but he's not the best defender, and that's the problem. What you really want is you want a world class defender like Rio Ferdinand, who's also mouthy and strong and aggressive, and we don't have that perfect combination at the minute. I say even Varane, and maybe still settling in, but he seems like a quiet enough kind of a character, goes about his business in a quiet way, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I think Lindelof just sometimes just kind of disappears. He doesn't seem to be commanding enough there at times. And I wouldn't say it was a great performance from him. So I think I'll agree with you on your four.
Yeah, arguably Varane is the only good defender we have at the club. You could make that case.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
I think, yeah, he played well again last night. Yeah, he's a great tackler. His positional play is fantastic. He's good in the air. He's quick. Yeah, and he's in many ways he's like Rio Ferdinand. He's quite a silky footballer. He's good on the ball.
Yes.
Probably doesn't have his personality, but yeah. There's no Vidic there. We've got a Rio, but we don't have a Vidic.
I think that's
So
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
we can see the two goals. So I'm not going to give him too high a score. So I'll go for 7 out of 10.
No, I think that's fair enough. Yeah, no, if I'm honest, yeah, I think that's probably fair. I would probably give him a wee bit lower, to tell you the truth. I still think it, maybe he's just come back from injury. Obviously, it was a much better performance than the previous week, or the previous game. But yeah, no, he played pretty well, fairly solid. But there are still times when I would like to see him just to be a wee bit more commanding. The one thing I think he's maybe struggling with, and maybe this is just my own perspective, I still think there's a part of him slightly struggling with the aggression and pace of the Premier League. I do think he's still a wee bit too used to having a bit more time on the ball, and there are times I think he needs to just be a wee bit more alert. I think he's just used to having a wee bit more time, maybe with the clubs, and even at the international level, he's used to being in very dominant teams that probably afford him a wee bit more time. I think he's still struggling slightly to get used to that, but by that, I think he's brilliant, and I think he will get there because he's top class. So, yeah, no real issues with him. Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, there was his first game back from injury. I think it was against Newcastle. I think he was pickpocketed at the open stages of the game because he thought he had time on the ball and he didn't. You probably wouldn't get that in like Real Madrid against Getafe. He's probably got all the time in the world on the ball. And
Exactly.
when you're playing against United or any of the top teams that are playing against a team in the relegation zone away from home, they're going to press you and you're not going to have time on the ball. I think Ranić even made reference to the fact that he said that there's no Newcastle and Norwich are in the relegation zone in the Premier League, but he said in the Bundesliga these teams would be mid-table.
It's true. It's 100% true. Yeah, that's exactly it. As I always say, there is no easy game in the Premier League. There really is not. Even the teams that are way below you are going to give you a game. They're going to give you a challenge, and at the very least, they'll be organised and they will absolutely give 120%. So yeah, just like you say, Kyle, not the luxury of Real Madrid against Getafe. That ain't happening. It's every game's a cup final. These teams that want to take a scalp, they want to beat Man United. You'll have clubs who haven't beaten Man United in 50 years. There's the smell of blood, and I think we can set a wee record here. They're absolutely busting to do it. So yeah, I think Varane, that's the one thing that I think he needs to get a wee bit more used to is having a wee bit less time on the ball. But yeah, bar that, I'll not be too critical. The guy's brilliant and he had a pretty good game. So yeah.
I suppose if we're being, ultra positive, based on the FA Cup match against Villa at home, in which we deserved to lose, last night it wasn't conceivable. It was pretty conceivable we could lose 3-0, and we ended up being 2-0 up and drawing the game. So it was probably in some ways better than what we expected, because in the away games that under Ranić so far have been pretty much a disaster. But United played really well in long spells last night. So it was an improvement. Okay, it feels like a defeat. Had Villa went 2-0 up and we came back to draw 2 each, it would have been much better, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I know. It's the thing, if Villa went 2-0 up, you'd have been absolutely raging at the time. You'd be nearly throwing your phone down the ground. But then they would have come back and it would have felt like a better result at the end of it all. But yeah, being it was the other way around, that actually felt more like a defeat. I think it was somebody, I can't remember, one of the pundits, I think, or an interviewer actually asked I think Ash Ranick, or maybe it was Ranick himself, said that was arguably United's best performance since he's came in. And I can see why people would say that, because all in all, there was no periods of the game where we looked completely off it, or we looked like we weren't trying collectively as a unit, not saying about every individual, but collectively. And I think that is an improvement. We look more like a team, which is good. But yeah, still, throwing away 2 goals is never going to be good. So yeah.
So Tellez again, wingers getting in behind him far too easily, getting the cross in. I just don't think he's a good defender. Obviously, I think the strongest part of his game is probably set pieces, corners and free kicks. I think he got another free kick on target. I think eventually he will score one of them. Hopefully, it's an important goal. But yeah, defensively, he's just so weak. Probably not as weak as Dallo, but just not good enough. So yeah, I would give him probably a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, the thing is, I know I like Tellez and probably defend of it too much, but maybe just maybe, he's still kind of getting used to the kind of the pace of the game and that pressure himself. He's not there that long, and he doesn't play every week, like, so it's not as if he's had say a full season really, to get used to things. He hasn't really. He's in and out and plays sometimes, and he was dropped for a while. So I'm hoping that maybe he comes good in time. I guess I see an athlete in him. See a guy with a lot of ability and pace, and I guess I see somebody that maybe could learn to improve discipline-wise. So maybe that's why I want to give him Bible in my mind. And also the fact that we're so limited with options. Maybe he would look like a good understudy to somebody, but the fact that we don't have many more options and we're relying on him maybe expose them a bit more. But I'm hoping that he eventually will come good. But yeah, for now, I guess we just need somebody a wee bit stronger defensively, and he's not quite doing that at the minute, unfortunately.
Yep. So moving on to the deadly duo in midfield, Nemanja Matic, just far too slow, lethargic, off the pace. He shouldn't be playing in the Premier League at his age. He's our only really kind of out and out number 6, defensive midfielder, and that's why we're so weak, because he can't even play every game because of his his age and his mobility and his pace. Just it's asking a lot of a guy at his age to play high intensity football, every week, and it shows. He's just long past his peak, and yeah, it wasn't a good performance from him again last night. I mean, the pressure that we came under, especially when Coutinho came on, he just wasn't even able to live with that intensity, and should have been substituted much earlier. So not a good performance for me. I'll go with a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you. Yeah, my interpretation is, it's similar. Really, it's summed up by the fact that, like you say, kind of at his age, he shouldn't be starting, and I think that again just tells us about our squad, really. And where we're at. And I know, of course, McTominay wasn't able to play and stuff, but it is disappointing. I mean, for me, Matic is a player. I think he has had a great career. He in his mind, mentality wise, and reading the game and all that, he is top level. I do believe he reads the game very well. I do believe that he knows what needs to be done. I just think that he's got to a point in his career where when it's high intensity against him, he doesn't really have the legs anymore, and that's understandable. A guy like Matic is a sort of player you'd want to play in certain games where you're able to protect him, and let him kind of take up those good positions and do what he does well, given his ability at this age. But unfortunately, again, similar to Tellez, he's been exposed because there's no other options, and he gets thrown in at the deep end, and he can't cope, and it makes him kind of look bad. So yeah, it wasn't a brilliant performance, but again, I think it just tells more of a story about the squad and what we need. The fact that a guy like Matic at his age is even put in that position and not getting protected, I think it's disappointing.
Yeah, so a typical Fred performance where he assists a United goal and then he assists the Villa goal, and he's just all over. He's just a chaotic performance, really. Giving the ball away, getting dispossessed, and just the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'll go with a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I'll agree with you there. It's strange with Fred. I'm almost liking him more now than I did, if I'm absolutely honest. Strangely, because I don't think that he's necessarily improving, but he does seem to be having. Again, maybe it's what you said earlier. Does have a little bit more composure when he gets the ball in an attacking position, which he didn't have before. Often you would have seen him completely spurn a chance or waste a chance. But he's not doing that, so I have to say he's improved from that perspective. Unfortunately, the rest of his game probably hasn't really changed. He still is liable to give it away in bad positions. Actually, I feel, if I'm honest, he was a wee bit unfortunate for the goal. If you look at it, it's a real scramble of players there. The ball almost could have went anywhere. I don't feel that he passed it straight to the man who scored. I think it was a case of it. The ball was going that way. He probably tried to get his toe on it, didn't get enough on it, and couldn't stop the ball going the way it was going. So I do think he deserves a wee bit of slack that he didn't quite play him in. I don't think it was quite that level of mistake. So yeah, but I think in terms of overall, a 5 is probably fair. But yeah, for Strainsy, I'm seeing him in a slightly more positive light. But again, coming back to our earlier point, we need better in that position. I think we need to buy, and he's just there out of necessity, probably more than anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was maybe the other Villa goal where in the build up to it, he makes a sliding challenge to try and intercept it, and he gets nowhere near the ball. And that was another typical Fred moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just again, he's just not at the required level that we need. He's a likable guy, and he has the endeavor that we want to see from a United player, but just lacking the quality. Okay, so Bruno Fernandez um scored 2 goals, and you can't ask for much more than that. Obviously, as he does in every game, he tries the Hollywood ball too much. He gives it away a lot. But he's always trying to make things happen, and it was one. It's probably the first time that he's had a game where he scored twice in a match, or even scored once in a game. Like we talked about earlier, he suits being the main man, and with Ronaldo in the team, and at Portugal as well, he doesn't excel when Ronaldo's in the team for some reason. I don't know why that is, but without Ronaldo last night, he was kind of back to having a big impact again. So I mean, he got 2 goals, so you had to give him an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, 100%. He has to get an 8. You can't score 2 goals in a game and not get a high score if you do absolutely nothing else, because 2 goals, like I said, for Man United should be enough to win the game. You shouldn't be letting a team come back from 2-0 down. So you score 2 goals, we really should be saying Fernandez single-handedly won us the match by scoring those 2 goals. He did enough to do that. So I think that the fact that that didn't happen is more down to other people than to him. So you could say it was a match-winning performance from that perspective. So I think it would be unfair to give him any less than that. In terms of him and Ronaldo, yeah, I don't really know what that is. It is an interesting debate. Kind of know what the kind of reason for that is. In terms of how Fernandez likes to play, again, you talked about that his performance bar the goals wasn't absolutely perfect last night. So I guess if you take out him scoring those goals in the sense of if Ronaldo's in the team and the game plan is to get the ball to Ronaldo, he doesn't score them goals because then he passes it to Ronaldo instead, as an example. So, maybe that's just the difference between him having the endeavor to say, I'm the main man today, Ronaldo's not here, I'm going to have the shot and score, as opposed to Ronaldo's here, the shot I would have, I'm going to try and give it to him to let him get an assist or whatever it is. And maybe that's the difference, two attacking minded players, and only one can actually take the shot. You either pass it to one guy or you take it yourself. So maybe that's where they struggle to play together. I guess maybe the perfect outcome in a sense is that he is able to get more assists to Ronaldo, where he can do the harder work, the creative stuff, get the ball to Ronaldo for Ronaldo to finish, and maybe that's the way that makes them both happy. I don't know, but either way, yeah, great performance last night. So like to see more of that if we can.
Yeah, I do remember specific games like Tottenham and Atalanta away where he did assist Ronaldo, but we haven't seen enough of that really. So hopefully we'll see more of it in the second half of the season. Okay, coming on to Alanga, for me, our best attacking player last night. He was creating chances for himself. He was taking people on. Obviously he's still a bit raw. He has a lot to learn, but yeah, I want to see him get more starts because yeah, he's kind of a bit like where Rashford was when he broke onto the scene. He's he's desperate to impress. He's trying really hard. Rashford seems to have lost a bit of that. He's an established first teamer now and doesn't quite try as hard as what he used to. But Alanga is the Rashford of old, really, if you know what I mean. He's just broke onto the scene and he's desperate to impress. He's working hard off the ball and he's doing really well with the ball. So yeah, been by impressed with the young lad, and yeah, I would give him about a 7.5 out of 10.
No, certainly, I completely agree with you, and it's particularly the fact that he is a young lad, and he's he's been thrown in the deep end there, he's been given a start. I thought he did really well. Yeah, I think you're right, Kyle. He's a young lad. He's quite raw. He's trying really hard. He just needs to learn a wee bit more about probably the other side of the game in terms of when to pass and when to shoot, and maybe just kind of get more used to the tactics and the kind of the I don't know the rhythm of play. But in terms of his endeavour and his output, I thought he was brilliant. Yeah, really fast, loads of pace, nice on the ball. Ball sticks to his feet, creating chances for himself. Really able to create space, which is what and the shots look really good. Plenty of power, hitting them sweet. Looking like somebody who could definitely score goals. So on based on what I saw last night, which is probably the most I've really seen of him. I thought he was brilliant. Yeah, young, lots of potential. Again, like you said, he's a bit like Rashford of old. He's also a bit like Greenwood of old. And all you really want to see as a young lad like that is learn, to mature a little bit in the game and keep the endeavour that he has and the enthusiasm that he has and the ability and just kick on. So yeah, hopefully he'll do that. Yeah, it's you can't never guarantee somebody's going to fulfill their potential, but young guy looks like he's got a lot of potential, and hopefully he'll progress in the right way and he'll do that. So yeah, looking really good so far.
The only thing I would have loved more than Alanga scoring one of those opportunities last night would have been Donny van der Beek nearly scoring the winner to make it 3-2. I think his shot was blocked. If that went into the far corner, I mean, I would have ran out of the bar and round the fucking car park celebrating that goal. Because nobody would have deserved it more than him.
I know, I know. I think we're all desperate for him to score and get. I know. I really do feel sorry for him. Like, and yeah, he's a really hard working young lad. He seems really honest. He just looks like the kind of guy who just wants to play football, and he never sulks. He never causes a stir. He just seems to be pretty unassuming. And something like that, you just want the best for them. Like, and he seems that we know he's got a lot of quality. Yeah, I really don't know what it is. It's a pure mystery. I think most people feel the same way. Nobody. I guess everybody saw the player at Ajax and go, how can that player not fit into Man United? And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer didn't, give him a shout. A lot of people went, oh, Solskjaer doesn't like him. Solskjaer, why? He's got a personal issue with him. But Rangnick has came in. He's given the same assessment as Solskjaer and went, he's not good enough to get a start. And I just don't know why. What's he doing in training? I just can't understand it. Like, for some reason, managers just don't seem to like the fella. And I don't know what it is. He looks to me like he's more than good enough for a start. I'd love to see him get more chances, but just doesn't seem to be getting them. So I wouldn't blame the guy if he eventually leaves, but I hope he stays and gives it at least one more season to try and get a game. But I wouldn't blame him if he says I've tried long enough and hard enough, and he moves on. But yeah, I would like to see him get a chance and make the most of it.
Probably the ideal scenario for him and for us as fans of him would be him going out on loan on January, playing regularly. Then Ten Hag becomes United manager, and then he becomes United first teamer in the summer. Then, that's definitely a possibility as we sit here in January. But let's see how it pans out. Obviously, I'd probably prefer him to get into the United team right now and start performing, but it doesn't seem likely. I do not understand why these managers are not fans of that player, because the supporters really like him. He impresses most times he's on the pitch. It's very
Yeah,
confusing.
no, exactly. I mean, the only thing we've talked about it before, the only thing I can see is that the managers don't see, and given the current squad and we talk about this balance, don't see maybe where he fits. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe he's the kind of player that when you have, midfield enforcers, say, I don't know, if you're talking about playing the three, maybe if you have a pure ball winning midfield enforcer along with Fernandez, who's really, really good going forward, maybe he's the perfect linchpin between those three where he can kind of do a bit of everything. He's tidy on the ball. He's not a worldly creative player, the way Fernandez is. He's not a hard ball winning tackler the way, if we got, say, a Declan Rice maybe would be, so maybe if we had that position sorted out, maybe he then gets more of a chance. And it's maybe the fact that we don't have that what we end up with is two kind of ball winning players because we don't have one who can do it on his own. And maybe that's why he never gets a game. So, who knows? Maybe if we got a transfer in that specialist central defensive ball winning midfielder, maybe that then actually creates a bit more of a balanced situation where actually then Van de Beek fits in. That's what I would hope. But who knows how it's going to pan out? But yeah, maybe he's a victim of his own, all-roundedness and not kind of specialism. I don't know. But I like him. I think he's a good football. He's tidy. I would love to see him. Love to see him play more. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I understand that the Ajax Academy, they're all coached on how to play different roles in the team. So that's probably why he's versatile and doesn't really hold down one particular position.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, coming on to Mason Greenwood, who we talked about earlier. Selfish with the ball, lazy without it, and just a very, very frustrating performance from a fan point of view. So, yeah, a 4 out of 10 for me.
Same for me, Kyle. Absolutely, 4 out of 10. Yeah, he's frustrating me at the minute. He's frustrating most people. Because it's nothing to do with his ability. It's all seems to be down to his mentality and his decision making. We've talked about it week in, week out this season, and it just unfortunately seems like it's not improving. I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know if he's maybe just a I don't know. Maybe he's the kind of guy who needs more of an arm around the shoulder and less than a kind of kick up the bum. And maybe he's getting too many kicks up the bum and he's just not really responding to it. I don't know. But it just, yeah, like you said there, he just he's not doing enough off the ball. He looks like a player who is happy to kind of let other people do the hard work. He wants the ball in a good position. He can take it on and maybe and take it on and get a bit of glory for himself and get a goal. But unfortunately, with the team around him, Man United, and like we talked about earlier, no easy games in the Premiership. You need to absolutely dig deep. Right now, we need to dig deep more than ever. And that's what he needs to do. And he's just not doing it. And for that reason, he's having no impact on games. And he's just not really contributing anything. So unfortunately for me, yeah, I think it's time that he gets dropped. I just don't know. I wouldn't want to see him. He's got ability. I wouldn't want to see him get completely deflated and ruin things for him. I want to see him kick on. I think the manager and the job, if I was Ranić, is to find the way to get the best out of him from a mental perspective and try and get his attitude in the right place where he gives what you need from him because there's no doubt he's got the ability. It's just about getting him to actually apply himself in the right way. So hopefully that can happen.
Okay, let's come on to Cavani. As always, he's workmanlike. He's doing a lot of work off the ball. His movement is great, but not been scoring any goals in the last few games. But that's probably down to a lack of service. And no better example than Greenwood always shooting and not picking out Cavani in the middle. It's just a pity he's not getting on the score sheet. And he should be if people would actually create chances for him. But he created a lovely chance for Alanga very early in the second half. He lifted the ball over the top of the defender's head, and Alanga ran onto it, and I think the shot was then saved by the keeper. But yeah, I'd give Cavani definitely a 7 out of 10. It wasn't spectacular, but it's Cavani's Cavani. He's always trying.
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly the chance you're talking about. And I think that was a great example of Alanga's pace and his touch actually because he took it really well there. And my only small criticisms of Alanga is if I remember correctly, he could have potentially cut that back to Cavani, and that's the kind of situation Cavani absolutely thrives on. So I feel in a way that another player there might actually cut it back, and Cavani might actually get on the score sheet. But I mean, you can't criticize Alanga for that. He's a young lad, and he saw a goal and. He had a pretty good chance. He just the keeper saved it. But yeah, I know Cavani wasn't his best performance. That I've seen him in the United shirt. But he kind of seems a bit like one of those players. Which what I like about him is there's almost like a bar he never really goes below. He never has an absolute shocker where he looks like he's absolutely off it and he's not trying and the head's gone down. He never seems to have that. He's either playing really well or he's playing okay. At least doing some good things, and I kind of like that about him. There's seems to be a level of effort that you can guarantee with him that he never really kind of drops below. I think that kind of sums him up. So yeah, not his best performance last night, but I do think with a few more kind of passes into him in the right position, he maybe could have got on the score sheet. So yeah, I don't think it was a poor performance by any means.
Yeah, it's a poor reflection on our midfield and our defence if Cavani's playing it right back, trying to block crosses coming in and
Yeah, well,
playing on
yeah,
the box.
exactly. Says it all.
Okay, let's critique Ralph Ranić now. We've talked about it earlier. The substitutions I didn't agree with. I didn't agree with any of them, and didn't agree with the timing of them, and did not substitute Matic when he should have. So yeah, he has to take some of the blame for Villa coming back into the game. He didn't react properly to Villa's substitutions. So yeah, I would probably give him a 4 out of 10 for last night.
I think that's fair. I mean, if I was to give him any slack, I would say that the general performance in terms of body language and how we looked and pressure and stuff like that, it was definitely more competitive than it has been for a number of weeks. Yeah, in fairness, it couldn't really got any worse, like, so it had to improve. But I do think that it was an improved look of the team, and and they looked like a good unit, more than they have done for a while. So if I start off by giving them a positive, but you're absolutely right, Kyle, I agree with you about all the substitutions. I would take Greenwood off, whenever Sancho came on 100%. I wouldn't left it too late, to try and salvage the game. I wouldn't have brought on Van de Beek, almost insultingly at 88 minutes, just to give his legs a run out, and the same with Lingard. So yeah, it's hard to say that he didn't make some kind of mistakes there. I'll caveat it with what I've been saying all day, is the fact that I do think he's up against it with who he can choose and the mentality of what we've got and the balance of the squad. So I do think that he's got quality, and he's struggling, as I think a lot of managers would be United right now, to get much of a tune out of those guys. I think the place is such a mess. He really, really has a task on his hands. But yeah, if you're talking about the specifics and the subs, I definitely think he could have done a bit better there. So all in all, yeah, I think a 4, but I'll give him some leeway, for the things I kind of just talked about. But yeah, things need to get better.
I think, unfortunately, you become guilty by association as a manager. We know how hard it is to manage the squad, but his reputation will obviously take a hit if he doesn't do well in these 6 months. I have no doubt he wants to be manager next season, but based on what we've seen so far, I think that's very unlikely. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's not looking likely. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I know. I've heard him say that. I know that he does want the job. It's not looking good at the minute. But like I say, what concerns me is that there's so many problems. I feel like United as a club are promising managers things, and they're not delivering on them. I feel like they're letting managers down. I feel like they've done that for a while. Looking at everything that's happening now, it brings me back to Mourinho. And like or hate Mourinho, I feel like Mourinho just was calling out everything he was seeing, and it made him look bad ultimately. But I feel like that at the minute managers are on a beaten to nothing. Like you say, Kyle, United is a bit of a poison chalice at the minute. It's almost guaranteeing the manager who's got a good reputation to take a hit to it. And I think that needs to change. So I really, really, really hope that whoever we bring in, whether it's Pochettino or Ten Hag or whoever it is comes in, that the club is in a position where they're able to actually support the manager and help him to actually get more out of the team, for everybody concerned. But at the minute, yeah, really, really concerned at the minute that managers are on a bit of a beaten docket before the start, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, Nigel, who regularly participates on this show, has said that he's changed his opinion a bit on Mourinho. He said Mourinho wanted to get rid of Martial and Pogba. He wanted to sign a centre half, which wasn't given to him, and basically the board, shafted him, and he was on the money with those decisions, and he wasn't. He was right in wanting to get rid of those two players, and he was right that we needed a centre half, and that those none of those three things happened, and
100%.
Yeah, so that's a great example of how managers get shafted at this club, and it gives rise to player power as well, and that's why we're in the situation we're in with the squad. Lots of cliques, and players who are not together, players who want to leave, and lots of different factions within the dressing room, and just it's pretty chaotic, really. That's the way it seems, anyway, and that's been created by the board. They're the root of this problem. Thankfully, the guy at the top of the board is leaving now at the end of the month, so hopefully we will see some changes.
Have to, 100%, Kyle. Yep, everything you said there, I completely agree with. Like I say, you've been talked a couple of times today myself. I've come back to Mourinho and said that problems have been there since then, and they're still not being sorted. And hopefully, fingers crossed now they will actually get sorted. But yep, club has been letting I mean, I would argue we're being let managers down from day one. I even think he let Moyes down the transfer window. I really do. I believe he let every single manager down. I really firmly believe that every manager we've had since Alex Ferguson left has been not as bad as the results have dictated, because they've been let down from above every single season. I firmly believe that. Not saying that Moyes was going to take us to the title, or that Solskjaer was going to take to the title. Those are guys who don't have the record that Van Gaal or Mourinho have. But 100%, they would have done better with more support from above. And the same goes for Van Gaal and Mourinho, and the same going for I really do believe that the problems we have now have been 7 or 8 years in the making, and it's time now they're sorted out. I think everybody involved with the club, fans, everybody's coming around to the way of really, really seeing that and saying, look, the club is an absolute mess from top to bottom. It's more than managers. It's a real, real bad situation. Someone has to sort it out. And I just hope to God that now it's going to get sorted out. I really, really do.
Yeah. Oh, fingers crossed. So it's really hard to pick what team we want against Brentford because I've really no idea what our strongest 11 is at the moment. That's just the way it is.
No, me
Um,
neither.
the only thing that I want to see is I obviously want to see Ronaldo come back into the team, and obviously I want to see Alanga start. I think he deserves to start again against Brentford. Would you go along with that?
Yeah, I think he does. I would love to see him get another start. I noticed the funny thing, actually, I don't know why I've even mentioned, but I noticed before kickoff at the start of the game, Cavani chatting to Langa. It looked like he was kind of almost, giving him a few wee pointers and stuff. So I feel like the more experience that young lad gets, starting and playing games, I think the more he's going to improve. Hopefully, listen to the likes of Cavani and Ronaldo and the experienced guys around him, and he will take those things on board. As I say, Tom Greenwood, it looks to me like he's not reacting that way, so that's unfortunate. But if Alanga does, I think he's good value for another start. Why not? If he can create chances for himself like he did last night, and have a wee bit more presence of thought to make the right decisions at the right times, yeah, he certainly will have an impact. So, yep, I would love to see him start, but don't see any reason why he shouldn't.
Yeah, when Ronaldo was saying in that Sky Sports interview that young players are not willing to take his advice, um, I very much doubt that he was talking about Anthony Alanga. I
No,
just couldn't
no.
see that being the case.
Yeah, I completely agree. I get that. I don't get the vibe off him that he'd be that type. He doesn't look like he's got an ego. He looks like a hard-working guy who'll take everything on board and try and use it to improve. Yeah, that's the vibe I get off him too.
Okay, I'm going to finish off the show today by talking about Marcus Rashford, who obviously didn't play last night due to illness, apparently. We've all been calling for him to be taken out of the firing line because his form has been so poor in the last 8 weeks or so. Um, some people have even went as far to say it's not a slump in form; he's just an average player. I wouldn't go along with that. We've seen him produce some very high quality moments over the last 4 or 5 years. He just lacks consistency. At the moment, it's not even just being he is consistent at the moment. He consistently crap, unfortunately. Um, so I just think he needs to be. I think this has been done in the past at United, where someone's not playing to their ability, and they get sent off to Dubai for a few weeks to recharge, and they come back. So hopefully that will happen. Just I don't think he should start against Brentford either. He needs to sit on the sidelines for a bit and then come back in eventually in a few weeks' time, and hopefully he's rejuvenated and ready to score goals again. Now, if that doesn't happen, if he's left out of the team for a few matches and he comes back and he's just the same as what he is now, he's just producing the same performances. Not challenging for rebounds like we saw in the league game against Villa. The crowd were going berserk at him and not working hard enough off the ball and not scoring goals. Obviously, if he continues to produce those types of performances when he comes back into the team, could there an argument be made that if United were offered 40 million for Rashford, do you think United should consider that?
Yeah, I think you make a fair point, Kyle. I wouldn't disagree with you. I guess from my perspective, as usual, I always think more time and more, thought about things. But the way I see it with Rashford is, yes, right now he's not playing well at all. The last time I did see him play, I was saying he looked desperate. He looked like he was trying too hard and making mistakes. Um, I think given the state of the squad in general and the lack of balance and all the issues that are going on, I would say that maybe, just maybe, he's a victim of that, and that he's suffering from the kind of rotten culture that seems to be going on at the club in general. Everything that I've seen from him indicates what you said there. That I don't think that he's an average player. I think he's a very, very good player, and I think that he can be really lethal whenever he's in on form and in the right circumstances. So I would say that I would hope that Rashford, and he's still a young lad too, hope that in the next year or two, if we're able to get the squad to a better place, maybe he can fit into a better system and a better unit, and maybe we'll get more out of him. But I wouldn't disagree where you're coming from. I totally understand what you're saying, and I think that he's not playing well enough and hasn't been for a long time, that you wouldn't blame anybody if they said, well, look, actually he's just never going to be at it, or it's not going to happen now. But given the wider context of how bad things are at the club, is what would make me say, kind of don't write him off just yet for that reason, because there's so much that needs sort of, and there's so many guys that aren't at their best because of everything else that's going on, and that would be the only thing that would make me say give him a bit more time. But you're right. I don't think anybody could defend him now and say, oh, he's going through a small slump, or he's just not at it. I mean, right now he just doesn't seem to be in a good place, football wise, for whatever reason. And that can't continue. I hope he gets out of it soon. If not, maybe limp on to the summer and have a good season next season. But yeah, it's not good. Something needs to improve. He's not the player that he was for some reason.
Yeah, I would give him to the end of the season to try and get his form back. But if this form continues right up until the end of May, then we will have to kind of reevaluate the situation in the summer. I certainly wouldn't be giving him an improved contract in the summer. Apparently, that's in the pipeline. I don't think he would be deserving of that at the moment. But if a big offer comes in, that's 40 million, maybe is too low. Say 50 million offer comes in, United might need to think about that if he continues playing the way that he is. But for now, I'm willing to give him another chance, and hopefully he can, start producing some form. It'd be perfect that in the business end of the season that he started to hit top form again. The timing of it would be brilliant. But yeah, it's a bit worrying. Some people have said that he's too distracted by his political activism. He does look like a guy. I'm not sure if it's necessarily that's causing problems on the field, but he does look like a guy who is distracted, who has personal issues in his life. There seems to be something not quite right there. Now I read last week that apparently he's got back together with his girlfriend. Hopefully that will make him feel a lot more happier, and hopefully will lead to improved performances. But yeah, the ideal scenario is that Rashford gets back to his best and stays at United.
Yeah, I think what you said there's right. Yep, just picking up on it. Yeah, I think it was maybe Roy Keane last night actually alluded to personal problems. So I don't know if that's something that's going on in the background that people in the know about, but maybe the wider public don't. And it's not really any of wider public's business anyway. What the guy does in his personal life. But yeah, maybe that is all it is. Maybe it's just something in his personal life that's distracting him, and that's the way life goes. Footballers are human beings at the end of the day. Not much you can do about that. So hopefully anything that sorts that out hopefully gets him on the right track. Just want to pick up on the thing you said, and I totally agree with you, Kyle, about not giving him an improved contract. Absolutely agree, and that has to go for everybody at Man United. That is a problem we've seen for far too long from our board, is giving players new contracts to protect investments that don't deserve it, football and wise. Back in the Ferguson days, say what we want, we'll harp it back to the good old days. We see them. Difference I see where they weren't the good old days, they were the ruthless old days where it was all about winning and you had to be a winner. And if you weren't doing that, you were surplus to requirement. That was what made those days the good old days. That's why, you see the Roy Keanes and the Gary Nevilles, and the Paul Scholes and Ferdinand talking so at times, scathingly about the players, because they know that they wouldn't have been afforded the luxuries of slacking off that the players right now seem to be and getting new contracts. So that not giving a new contract, 100%, whatever the reasons are, somebody isn't performing that don't deserve to have a contract extended or renewed. And I think that it's their responsibility to get themselves back on track to earn that new contract. So hopefully, yep, that happens across the board. Totally agree with you on that point.
Yeah, and exactly the same applies to managers. Like after 2.5 trophyless seasons, and just after losing the Europa League final, Solskjaer was then given a 3-year contract. That was absolute madness, and it ultimately turned out to be the wrong decision because it cost them a lot of money in compensation to sack him. So yeah, the same applies to managers and players, that they should only get contracts if they deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I say again, my only caveat with managers, and not defending Ollie at all, or Ranić or anybody, is that with a football you can't turn around and say, I want a good performance from you, but I'm only going to let you wear one football boot. Well, in a way, that's what happened with the managers. Want a good performance out of you, but I'm not going to give you everything you need to actually do it. So that's where the only caveat for me is the managers aren't being given what they need, and until they're given what they need, it's very hard to judge them accordingly. Like you said, Nigel retrospectively looks differently on Mourinho now that he realizes, that the board weren't supporting him the way they should have done. So I do think that has to happen. it's hard to judge managers until that happens for me. But for players, it's easy to judge because they only have one job: go out and perform the best you can. And if they're not doing that, then they definitely shouldn't be given new contracts. But yeah.
Okay, that ends the Glory Glory podcast today. Been a pleasure to have you on, Chris.
You too, Kyle. As always, good to chat. Yep. Hopefully, better performances coming up and some improvements, but remains to be seen. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, hopefully next time we're on, we're talking about a 4-0 win for United, and we're full of the joys.
Hope so, Kyle. Hope so. Yep. Anyway, good man. Good to chat.